There's a particular kind of pride many of us have been taught to carry: the full calendar, the impossible to-do list. The color-coded schedule was something tucked into every available nook and cranny, because apparently an empty space in the day means we have failed to become sufficiently important. I know this world. For most of my career, there was always something waiting: a client, a meeting, a problem that needed solving, an employee who needed an answer, a decision that could not possibly wait until tomorrow, according to the person standing in front of me. And because I am very good at solving problems, I solved them, one after another, until solving the next thing became the rhythm of the day. Perhaps you know that rhythm. You begin the morning with a list already running through your head. Before your feet touch the floor, your mind has moved into the future, cataloging everything that must be carried, answered, fixed, finished, remembered, accomplished. By the time you sit down with your coffee, you're already mentally halfway through a day you have not yet lived. Then we wonder why we cannot hear ourselves. Science gives us a fascinating piece of this puzzle. The conscious mind can only hold around 4 things at once. 4. Yet we routinely hand it a list long enough to fill the margins of the day, then continue adding to it every time someone walks into the room with another urgent request. We call it multitasking. Our brains call it a traffic jam. And somewhere inside all of that movement, something extraordinary gets buried. The thought that would have changed the direction of the conversation. The quiet realization that the answer we have been chasing was sitting just beneath the surface. The instinct that says, wait. The deeper knowing that says, look again. I was talking with someone the other day about our human need to fill every space, and it stayed with me. Because what happens in the spaces we leave open? What arrives when we resist the reflex to immediately answer? Where does intuition live if every room inside us is already occupied? Perhaps that is what I find so striking about today's cards. The Fire Prince is here, and so is the Ice Queen. At first glance, they appear to belong to different worlds. Fire is movement, heat, transformation, the force that consumes what it touches and leaves the landscape forever changed. And ice is stillness, preservation, the cold, clear intelligence that can hold something perfectly in place. One says, move. The other says, see. And between them, the Hanged Man hangs suspended above the noise of ordinary life. I've always loved the strange wisdom of this card, because he's not simply waiting around for someone to tell him what to do. He has chosen a position that changes his perspective. The world looks different from where he is. That matters. There are moments when the answer refuses to appear because we keep looking at the same problem from the same place. So God turns us upside down. Life stops. The plan changes. The door closes. The meeting gets canceled. We find ourselves standing in a space we had not planned to leave open. And suddenly, there is nothing to do except sit there long enough to notice what we have been too busy to see. I think many of us have learned to fear those moments. I've learned to pay attention to them. Some of the clearest direction of my life has come when I finally stopped trying to manufacture the next step long enough for God to show me one. That is where today's reading feels deeply personal to me. Because this is not a message about becoming less ambitious. The Fire Prince would laugh at that. This is about understanding the difference between motion and direction. The Seven of Pentacles asks us to look at what is already growing beneath our feet. We are often so busy reaching for the next thing that we fail to recognize the seeds we've already planted. Some just need more time. Some need water. Some have quietly grown into something we've not yet bothered to notice because we're already scanning the horizon for the next field. And then come the winged wise ones, the angels, inspiration, imagination, those strange, beautiful ideas that seem to arrive from somewhere beyond the reach of conscious thought. I don't believe they shout over the noise. I think they wait. I have known remarkable leaders who understood the value of waiting. They were rarely the people fighting to get their words into every conversation. They could sit in a room full of noise and let everyone else spend themselves explaining, defending, posturing, solving. They listened. And when they finally spoke, the room changed. People leaned in because they had learned something most of us spend years trying to understand. Words gain weight when they are not used to fill empty space. And I think leadership works the same way. So does intuition. So does prayer. There is a reason silence can feel uncomfortable. In silence, there is nowhere for us to hide from what we already know. And perhaps that is where the Ice Queen enters the story. She brings the clarity to hold the Fire Prince's passion in steady hands. Because sovereignty does not ask us to choose between fire and ice. We need both. There are moments when life asks us to burn through the old story, move with conviction, make the call, take the risk, walk through the door. And there are moments when wisdom asks us to become still enough to see whether the fire is truly ours to carry. One transforms, one preserves, one moves, one watches. Together, they create the kind of discernment that knows when the moment has arrived. And then there's the Knight of Swords, because eventually the waiting ends. The silence has done its work. The perspective shifts. The answer rises. And when you know, you go. No circling the truth for another 6 months. No building a committee around the thing God has already placed directly in front of you. No mistaking endless contemplation for wisdom. The cards feel remarkably clear today. Stop. Look at your list. Look at your calendar. Look at all the places where you have filled the available space simply because you could. Ask yourself what you might hear if you left one small corner of this day unoccupied. One meeting where you listen more than you speak. One walk without filling your ears. One conversation where you allow the silence to remain long enough for the deeper answer to emerge. One moment with your coffee where you resist the urge to immediately begin carrying the entire day. Then look at what is already growing, at the idea that has been circling the edge of your awareness, at the problem that may require a different perspective rather than a faster solution. And the thing God may have been trying to show you through a door that keeps refusing to open. And when the clarity comes, go. Bring the Fire Prince. Bring the Ice Queen. Carry the passion and the discernment together. Leave enough room in your life for inspiration to find you. Then trust yourself enough to recognize the difference between a distraction and a direction. Because some of the most important answers of your life will never fight their way through the noise. They will wait for you in the space between one thought and the next. Stop. Look. Now go.